watching The Mint on ZTN Prime, is broadcast to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. Now, financial inclusion remains a significant challenge in Zimbabwe and across Africa, with millions of people still lacking access to basic financial services. However, new technologies are emerging as powerful tools to bridge this gap and bring financial services to underserved communities. We're now joined in studio by Humphrey Machukuche, the Chief Executive of eShandi's Financial Services, an international financial technology company revolutionizing the landscape of inclusive financial services across emerging markets. Now, let's get into the meat of the subject. Sir, hello and welcome to The Mint.
Thank you very much, Eben.
Fantastic. As an icebreaker, can you give us an overview of financial access and inclusion in Zimbabwe?
Financial access in general in Zimbabwe, it has actually improved over the years, especially with the introduction of mobile money. It has actually seen a lot of applications and the inclusive effect on the rural folk that used to be, in fact, it used to be crowded out of the market because they didn't have access to the formal banking systems.
Right. We've spoken about Zimbabwe. Let's talk about Africa broadly.
Yes, Africa in general also has also seen the same actually happening. We'll talk of East Africa where there is M-Pesa there. You find Kenya, Tanzania. There's a lot of inroads in there, and is finding the growth in inclusivity growing in leaps and bounds. The major hurdle has actually been the mobile penetration rate. I think generally in Africa it's at 40%, 46%, which is like half the population. Although in Zimbabwe, we are at 90 or 90%, which has made it actually much easier.
Right. Mobile money being introduced, of course, by the M-Pesa that you made reference to in 2011, adopted in Zimbabwe in 2013. It appears that Africa is leading the world where mobile money adoption is concerned.
Indeed. I think Africa, unlike any other place, is actually moved much faster. And the acceptance of the technology as a medium of exchange has actually been very impressive. And if you look at the numbers just over the period that you're talking about, they have not been matched in any other space.
Right. Now, how significant is the issue of financial exclusion in the different parts of Africa? And what impact does it have on economic development even here in Zimbabwe?
Financial exclusion is what we see in the poverty cycles that we have grown to be accustomed to and experience. Because without financial resources close to you, one cannot even grow. It stifles growth, even in the small businesses. It leaves people with no options to lean to, or even to, there's no financial intermediation even at government level.
Right. May you shed more light in terms of the barriers that have restricted access to financial services, be it in Zimbabwe, be it abroad? What are some of the key logs that have been problematic?
The most barriers even that you find in Africa is mostly infrastructure. There is poor infrastructure across the country, and it makes it difficult. The physical banks are very expensive for most of the African countries to actually put up, and the connectivity infrastructure also in terms of internet has also not been very much widespread. There are pockets where you cannot actually access internet. There are pockets where you cannot be able to do mobile banking. So those barriers, we need to work as Africa to try and make sure that everybody can actually be able to access internet. Also, electricity has exacerbated the situation because you find Sometimes we've got timeouts, sometimes there's no electricity and then connectivity is affected. So infrastructure does play a big role.
Right. How is eShandi leveraging new technologies to improve financial access for underserved communities, speaking to the work that you as a fintech do in African communities?
eShandi is fairly a new brand in Zimbabwe. We actually opened our doors and got licensed about 1.5 years ago, and we were given a credit-only license. And we are actually in the process of acquiring the other license that allows us to apply the full fintech technologies that are at hand. But where we were based in Zambia, eShandi, by the way, it means mine, changu in Shona.
All right.
Yami. It's in Zambia.
All right. So in Bemba, eShandi means mine.
Mine, yes.
Interesting.
Yes. So it just reflects our vision of inclusivity, because if something is yours, you have this commitment, you have got you have got belonging, a sense of belonging in you. And so what we are then doing in other jurisdictions is that we have created mobile applications.
Right, let's talk about those other jurisdictions. You mentioned Zambia. May you shed more light there?
Yes, we have got Zambia. This is where we are headquartered. And we also have just gotten licensed in South Africa.
Right.
We are actually operationalizing it around May. So in Kenya. So in all those places, Zambia especially being the head office, we already actually have these applications where we've got mobile applications. We have created a framework for peer-to-peer lending, for example, that allows people convenience to invest their funds from
peer-to-peer lending, which means I can lend directly
through this
particular platform to another individual.
Exactly. So we have created that, and we also have cross-border payments applications that we've put in place, business-to-business payment systems, business-to-customers payment systems that are in place, and we are continuing to leverage on technology, especially with the advent of AI and blockchain and so forth, in order to bring convenience to the customer.
Right. You mentioned about the mobile applications and how those have come in handy. May you speak to the uptake of those mobile technologies and other technologies that you've implemented in seeking to facilitate trade, transaction, banking, and all kinds of relevant services outputted?
Yeah, thank you, Eben. I think as is the norm in with every new technology that comes, or every new invention that comes on board, at first there is a resistance because yes, people don't want to try new things. But I'm glad to say that there is a new growth of a new population who want to experiment, who want to get into things and try them out. The uptake has actually been impressive, because especially the peer-to-peer lending is actually giving phenomenal benefits to the participators. And what it's also doing is that they are now appreciating, because it's very user-friendly. And again, as an entity, what we have done is we have gone into education and promotion so that people get to know what it does. So education is key for any new invention to be taken by the intended target.
Right. I know that you spoke a little bit about some challenges, and you spoke about the fear of the unknown. What other barriers do you realize for new and emerging technologies, such as the ones that are being proffered by eShandi?
Oh, basically, even like I mentioned first, is that we would like to be in every underserved market, but sometimes the infrastructure there is not up to the required standard, like connectivity, and then even just the roads to get to those spaces, it might actually be a challenge. So like any other player, we've actually had those barriers and those setbacks, but it's something that we are managing. And also regulatory framework, for example, it's not easy for you to just engage into peer-to-peer lending in Zimbabwe. You've got to have a deposit-taking microfinance license for you to do it, and there are stages that you need to do. But I think it's also to do with financial prudence, which is also a welcome aspect of this financial ecosystem.
Right, you mentioned the aspect of financial prudence and how there are some of these demands from a regulatory perspective. How far have you gone, and what sort of preparation do you put in place to ensure that you are up to speed with the requirements as they come through in that particular order?
We are already fully licensed as a microfinance and operating,
right,
and we are actually an affiliate of Zimbabwe Microfinance Association of Zimbabwe, ZAMFI, and we are in constant liaison with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe regarding compliance. And what we are also doing is that we are also looking at possibility of starting new projects in liaison with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe through like the sandbox arrangement, fintech sandbox arrangement, where we will try out new products under the supervision of the regulatory authorities.
Right, interesting development there with Sandbox, which is a facility put forward by the central bank to allow experimentation, I would put it, of new products, as of course our guest here just alluded to in terms of some of the preparation that needs to be in place. Well, we continue with the conversation looking at the progress of fintech services, not just in Zimbabwe, on the continent as well as beyond. Now the men to be right back. Don't